Comox Valley. She is the former chair of Girls Children's Services Committee and sits on the X Committee. Colleen is the president of Comox Valley Lifelong Learning Association and believes the library is a reflection of its community, and her work is informed by her commitment to create welcoming and inclusive library spaces. She's interested in how libraries use community development to knit the library into the fabric of the community and how relationships improve access and outcomes for families. Today I'm going to talk to you about Dad's Night Out. Allison has agreed to be our timekeeper. She is going to give everyone their warnings, so 2 minutes will be yellow. We're going to get progressively deeper into the color spectrum. Orange is your 1 minute warning, and red is your time. I'm going to get on my timer because I want to be able to see it so I know where I am. And I'm going to reset. All right, so I'm here to talk to you today about inclusive community partnership programming and the Dad's Night Out program, which is now called Valley Dads, but they're interchangeable program titles, so I'll go back and forth between the two and hope that I don't confuse you. So it was started from attempts to revive our Father Involvement Network, which was a program that had existed for about 10 years in the Comox Valley and was aimed at getting fathers more involved in children's activities in the community. And it sort of lost its steam. And I have been pushing at our early years table for a while to bring a program I had done at Qualicum Beach with community partners called Dad's Night Out to the Comox Valley. So in the fall, we struck a steering committee to look at how we could leverage resources and opportunities to offer some programming specifically designed for male caregivers and their children. And we applied for a very tiny grant from our early years community using our Success by 6 money. And then we looked for partners who could commit to one program a month designed for dads and kids. So our original partnership was Vancouver Island Regional Library, so the branches in the Comox Valley, Lush Valley, which stands for Let Us Share Our Harvest. It's a food share and food security organization, and the Cumberland Recreation. And then we couldn't find a fourth partner who would commit. So once a month we do a field trip to a community partner who can commit to one program a session. So we meet on Wednesday nights, and it's a free program open to all families in the Comox Valley. And it targeted originally, we looked at targeting early years, but we soon got rid of all sorts of age limits and just invited everyone who could come. And we were really looking to support our early years strategic plan, goal number 2, which was to increase access to programming and sustainability through leveraging partnership funding, as well as to target working families, because the feedback we got in our community was families felt there was nothing in the evenings and weekends for families who had traditional working hours, that all of the free family programming took place during the day, and if they wanted to go to something, they had to pay to go to something. So it was really important to us that we made sure that it was free. And the commitment at the steering table was that those of us with sustainable funding, and I'll put the library in that category and knock on wood, would commit our own resources. So we didn't ask for any funding. We funded out of existing budgets, and same with the recreation, and that the funding would go to the community partners who wanted to participate but maybe didn't have the stable funding they needed to participate. So we went forth with our $700 and our commitment to design programming for families, and did our programming on Wednesday nights. And the outcomes have been it's been a fantastic program for us, because not only has it strengthened partnerships with groups we were loosely affiliated with, but we've been able to bring into the fold some elusive partners. So the Comox Valley is made up of 4 municipalities, which can make connections sometimes problematic, and that's 4 recreation departments that we're trying to engage. And some are a little more aloof than others. So we were able to take our relationship with Cumberland Rec, which is the smallest recreation program, and say, look at what they're doing. Can you offer us one program? Will you commit to doing one night? And we were able to bring in partners who we hadn't seen before. So strengthening that partnership, and then creating a model where you could take a tiny bit of funding and strong community partnership and really stretch it to have maximum input and look at that idea of collective impact and collective community programming to address a gap and a need. So the results have been really exciting. We see lots of dads and kids and male caregivers and grandpas coming to the library. They are non-traditional users, so it's a lot of families we don't already have a connection with, but they're being drawn in through our programming. So last week, Allison built catapults with the families out of popsicle sticks, which was a huge draw to the library of families we'd never met before. And one of our library assistants, it turned out, was a catapult enthusiast. And so we were able to bring him in as an expert, and he brought his catapult models from home and was able to connect with kids and talk catapults. The Cumberland Recreation Society has a climbing wall, and they do open gym night once a month, and they're getting upwards of 70 people coming to that program. And Lush Valley does Little Chefs, which is a cooking program, maxed out at 10 families, and they consistently get 10 families coming as well. So it's been a great opportunity for us to develop programming and target users we're not seeing at our other programs. It's also helped us develop and grow the program from just a Dad's Night Out style program to what's now going to be a Valley Dads program. So our steering committee right now is all women and no dads. And so we've recognized that this is a bit of a gap because we're not getting feedback from users. So we have set up a Dads Advisory Council, and those dads are going to help tell us what they need and what they want to see in the community. And we're also hoping that we'll be able to target some programming specifically for dads that looks at like doing things without their kids, so CPR classes, child first aid, peer support. And then we're going to take the Dad's Night Out model, which has been so successful, and we have been guaranteed some money from the United Way to develop Valley families, because what we heard was, we love Dad's Night Out, why can't moms come? Or I don't have a dad in my family, we want to be able to participate. So recognizing that families come in all shapes and sizes, we wanted to make sure that we were being inclusive. So Valley Families is going to start in the fall, and same program model, weeknights, free, everyone is welcome for the programming. So I wanted to talk to this about today because I think it's an exciting way to look at how you can take collective community programming and use it to increase your impact with families and stretch your resources and grow your opportunities, address gaps and needs, and better serve the families in your communities. Okay, so next up is Michael from Prince George. Michael is our recent MLIS graduate who's been working at the Prince George Public Library for 5 years in recent roles, including circulation, readers advisory, teen programming, and is currently the acting teen librarian. And Michael is going to talk to us today about queer-straight alliances in public libraries.
Get my timer going here too. I can talk about this all day, so 8 minutes is a total challenge. All right, so I am here to talk about Queer Straight Alliance. So it's a really unique program. It's also one of the most successful programs we've had for teens at the Prince George Public Library. So usually Queer Straight Alliance, QSA, or Gay Straight Alliance, as some of you might be more familiar with them, you'll find them in middle schools, in high schools. And so the library is kind of a unique place to kind of plop one of these down in. And so how it came about, in 2012, Amy Dolly was our teen librarian. And being the astute individual that she is, she started to notice a lot of LGBT teens utilizing the library. And so she wanted to know how we could better serve them, what more we could do for them. And so essentially the QSA was born. Her and I worked together to get it started. The very first thing that we did was check in with the high schools to make sure we weren't stepping on any toes and to make sure that there was kind of a need there. And 100% the thing we heard most was, go for it. LGBTQ teens need more safe spaces, especially in Prince George and especially in public environments, because a lot of them just, it's hard to find in a public space, especially in PG. So we took that QSA structure and we kind of moved it into the library. So a couple of the big things, other reasons why we brought it into the library is that in Prince George, not all of the schools had QSAs. It also opens it up to a citywide catchment. So we're also able to bring in private school, alt-ed kids, homeschool kids, and they all get to hang out with a different crew than they would within their high school environment. We also heard that students really loved their school QSAs, but there was a couple of kind of stopgaps in there. There was inconsistencies in their availability. A lot of the times it would have to do with staff members, there'd be staff turnover, and all of a sudden the QSA wasn't functioning for them anymore until somebody else could fill that role. There's also long periods of time when the school year isn't available. So summers, spring break, Christmas, which can be an especially hard time for queer kids because sometimes there's some family tensions there that make it really difficult for them. And so we knew that as a public library, we could fill those gaps and we could do a really good job of it. So we decided we would. So another thing that came up with the teens was that within their high school environment, they felt like when they were going to their QSAs or their GSAs, they were sort of self-identifying to their peers that they were the gay kids in the school. And while that still happens a little bit within the library environment, because it's a different crew, it's a different environment, it's not necessarily the kids that they're going to school with every day who are going to see them there, and so it removes a little bit of that stigma from them. One question I do get asked a little bit is whether or not the public library is really an appropriate place for a QSA, and my response is always, of course, it's the most appropriate place for a QSA. It's a public space. It's a space that teens should already have ownership over, and they should already be feeling like that is their space. They should be feeling comfortable there, and so we should be serving them. And as we know, libraries, public libraries are mandated to serve their entire community. And so if you're not serving LGBTQ teens, then you're already failing at that mission. Also, schools aren't necessarily always the most friendly place for queer teens especially to be. It certainly wasn't for me. And while I've seen huge progress since I was in high school, it's still a very harsh place to be for queer teens. GLSEN is a research company out of the States, and they do some research on polling LGBT students in their high school environment, and they return stats, things like 60% of teens, LGBTQ teens, have heard their teachers talk derogatory comments about LGBT, so they'll use terms like, oh, that's so gay, or even the occasional fag and dyke sneak in there. And this is coming from their teachers, so they're not necessarily feeling a safe space there. And that doesn't even touch on the interactions that they're having with other students. So we knew that we could address that in a safe space in the library. So then what do we actually do at the QSA? Well, essentially at their very core, QSAs are just, they're friendship clubs. They're places for people to come and connect, network, meet other people who are just like them. And so that's kind of the core of the thing. And I always say, if you can keep their hands busy, all that other stuff comes naturally. So anything that you do at a regular teen event in your library or a teen program in your library, you can also do it at a QSA. I like to say throw some glitter at it, throw some unicorns in there, bam, you've got yourself a QSA program. So with my particular crew, their favorite stuff is the typical things. It's the arts and crafts, it's the movie nights, scavenger hunts. But I also reach out into the community to try to make connections for these teens specifically. So I bring in Positive Living North, who is our group that deals with HIV, AIDS. Our crisis center comes in and does talks about suicide prevention and awareness. We have a new gender clinic in Prince George, so I can refer teens there. I haven't been able to bring them into the library yet, but we've established enough of a connection that I can say to the teens, if this is something you're dealing with, do I have a resource for you? And so I can refer them to our gender clinic. What else do we have here? Community policing is a group that I've brought in. Some people think that's a little bit odd, but sometimes the LGBT community can have a little bit of a difficult time with police presence. And so I brought in somebody to kind of like calm those waters a little bit and be able to have that chat. We also do other things that when we have people coming into town, sometimes they come to the high school, they'll actually, it's nice now, they'll contact me. So out in schools, out on screen, we bring in special speakers. I've led conversations around sexuality, coming out, gender, just so that kids have kind of a comfortable space to have those conversations in. I've got less than 2 minutes left. One of the really cool things we've been able to do is offer what we call our masquerade. It's a mass queer aid. It's an annual dance. We have it after hours. We give away 100 tickets to teenagers. We DJ it, we give them all kinds of pop and sugar, and we just hype them up, and we let them go at it. So it's a really fun night for gay kids, straight kids, everybody. They come to the library, they hang out, they have a really good time. Some of them bust out their prom dresses. So it's just a really cool environment in the library, and it creates those really kind of significant connections to the library as being a positive space, which is something that I hope they get to carry forward with them into their adult years. Of course, not all libraries are ready for a QSA, but I promise you every library is serving LGBTQ teens. So if you're not already doing things for them, then I would really like to encourage you to do that. The other question I get asked in my last 30 seconds is, how many, like, do you have to be queer to run Queer Straight Alliance? And the answer is absolutely not. I say you have to have 3 things. You have to have an open heart, an open mind, and a willingness to learn. And other than that, everything else will come. Just let the kids teach you, even, if that's where you're at. But the QSA, it's been going on now since 2012 or 2013. And like I said, it's our most popular, and like by statistics, we have the most kids come out to that program as we have had to any teen program in our memory. So that's my 8 minutes.
Bam.
Courtney is the library manager of the Mission Hill Library and Outreach Services for Fraser Valley Regional Library, and Afton is the community librarian at the Mission Library. And they are going to speak today to their presentation, It's a Crime Not to Read.
So It's a Crime Not to Read is a community impact project aimed to promote literacy and reading habits of grade 3 students, and to promote positive engagement between kids and local RCMP officers. The program is a 3-way partnership between the RCMP, Mission School District, and Mission Library. It's a Crime Not to Read was a program first developed by Calgary Public Library, and with many tips from staff there, we brought it to Mission and developed it to suit our community. Once a month, a library staff member and an officer visit grade 3 classes of participating schools. This year, we visited 4 different classes of grade 3, 2 to 3 students. So during these visits, the officer reads aloud a few picture book stories that we handpicked and that were suitable for the age. And after reading the stories, they hold a question and answer session, which the kids can ask questions either about the police force or about the stories. Now, if the officer is called away for a police incident, the library are there to step in and take over and read to the kids. To tie this program back to the physical library, we developed a fictional crime scene story. So each visit we would read a part of this crime scene story and then leave a clue hidden within the library that the kids could come in and find. And we gave each of them one of these booklets. It's kind of like the summer reading club where they would come in and collect one of the clues each month. At the end of the year, they would have enough clues to guess which I guess, suspect had committed the crime, and they could enter to win a prize. Now, we chose 3 schools that we thought were in areas where the program would have the most impact and where kids were the most vulnerable. So coordinating between the schools and the RCMP had many challenges, particularly as schedules seemed to change so quickly and so frequently. So I found that scheduling the visits takes a bit of flexibility on the library's part. Sometimes there's a very small window where the police officers are available at the same time that the schools are available. So planning the program was done months in advance. I had sent out dates to principals back in August, and the schools were given a list of dates that worked for us, and they chose which ones they thought would be the best to work for them. But due to the complicated schedules of police officers, sometimes they needed to be confirmed every month or rescheduled.
So why did we choose It's a Crime Not to Read? Well, we chose it based on the demographics and community needs of Mission.